But at the top of 4 o'clock, we need to get right to some breaking news. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani just spoke for the first time since his COVID-19 diagnosis. Hello, everyone. I'm David Ushery.
And I'm Natalie Pasquarello. Let's get over to News 4's Adam Cooperstein in the newsroom now with what Giuliani had to say. Coop.
Well, guys, he called into a radio show from the hospital. He said he's doing fine and that his symptoms are mostly gone. Giuliani said he had trouble breathing at one point, but described the case as mild. He said he's fever-free now, but still suffering from a little cough. The president's personal attorney said he's been up and walking around. He thinks he will be released from the hospital as soon as tomorrow. And then he was asked if this whole experience has changed his views about COVID-19 and how to fight it.
Exactly the same view. You know, I've also been through cancer, a couple of other things, very serious emergency knee operation. Things happen in life, and you have to go with them. You can't overreact to them. Otherwise, you let the fear of illness drive your entire life. I'd rather face risk than live in a basement all my life.
Giuliani also opened up about his treatment. He said he got remdesivir and also dexamethasone. Those are the same medications taken by President Trump during his own battle with the coronavirus back in October. And Giuliani admitted that he knows some of those treatments aren't available to the general public. Back to you guys.
Adam Cooperstein in our newsroom. Thank you. We also have news breaking in Connecticut. A police officer has been shot in Waterbury in New Haven County. Police say the officer was taken to the hospital and is recovering. This happened apparently while the officer was investigating reports of a stolen car. According to Waterbury police, the gunman took off from the scene and they're still looking for him.
Okay, we want to take a minute now and show you the strongest image of hope that we've had in the last 9 months of the coronavirus pandemic. Have you seen this yet? This is Margaret Keenan, first in line in the UK for the first clinically approved vaccine. She turns 91 next week, and she's a symbol of the light at the end of this tunnel. Here in New York, we expect the first vaccines to arrive 1 week from today. It looks like the Pfizer vaccine is on the verge of approval. Today, the FDA said it is safe and that it works after 1 dose and that it's 95% effective after 2 doses. But the fight isn't over yet because in New York City, our positivity rate's still hovering just below 5%. The mayor says more restrictions are on the table right now, and it comes as the city is ramping up its COVID testing. The main focus on Manhattan, including the Lower East Side, where you can see we saw some long lines there today. That's where we find News 4's Andrew Siff. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Natalie. As you indicated, 2 competing realities in New York City right now. On the one hand, COVID cases and hospitalizations rising almost every single day. And on the other hand, the vaccine due to arrive here in the city 1 week from today. Waiting more than an hour today for a COVID test, no problem for Kate Hardy in Chinatown. She's already looking ahead.
I'm ready for it.
Ready for the vaccine, set to arrive in the city 1 week from today. Healthcare workers at hospitals get their shots first, along with those in nursing homes. For the next group of New Yorkers,
I'm hoping January, February, but that might be too optimistic.
This week I asked the governor about vaccine delivery. How does it physically get to New York?
It gets approved by Washington. The military, General Perna, is in charge of transporting it. They use FedEx, believe it or not.
And today the mayor described the next weeks as a critical pivot point.
This is the last big battle before us, and then the vaccine will be able to do it to work.
Until then, some major challenges. Indoor dining likely to shut down Monday, and the mayor hinted other businesses might also have to close.
Unfortunately, restrictions are needed to protect us all.
Meanwhile, city schools have reopened. The mayor indicating they'll stay that way as long as the city's COVID positivity is below 9%. It's currently around 5%. City health officials expanding their test and trace efforts with extra emphasis on Harlem and the Lower East Side this week. Andre Mirnov waiting for yet another test today.
I usually get tested every month, but now I have symptoms and I decided to get tested.
And on the subject of schools, there's ongoing uncertainty about how many of these schools can offer children in-class learning 5 days a week. The mayor said he wants all 850 elementary schools to do that. So far, it's far less than that. The chancellor promised to provide an update on that later today. Live on the Lower East Side, Andrew Siff, News 4 New York.
Andrew, thank you for that update. Now we have more on the big day across the pond. The first Pfizer vaccines were given out in the UK. A British grandmother made history, becoming the first person to get a clinically approved COVID vaccine. News 4's Rana Novini is in the newsroom with more on the rollout, Rana.
Yeah, and David, the UK is calling this V-Day. It's been nearly a year since the first reported COVID-19 death in China. And now, as you mentioned, a British grandmother became the first person in the world to receive a clinically approved vaccine.
With cameras flashing, Margaret Keenan, who turns 91 this week, became the first person in the world to receive a tested and approved COVID-19 vaccine. Big cheers and all smiles. In the UK, they're calling her Patient A.
It was fine. It was fine. I wasn't nervous at all. I don't know what to say. It's just overwhelming. It's the first, really.
The second patient, an 81-year-old man named William Shakespeare. The Pfizer vaccine rolled out to more than 50 hospitals in the UK today, going first to the elderly, the vulnerable, and those who care for them.
When everyone's had it, you know, we should be able to sort of socialise, meet up and, you know, get back to a new normal.
But British leaders are warning the grips of the virus are still far from over.
It's amazing to see this tremendous shot in the arm for the entire nation, but we can't afford to relax now.
The UK forging a path on what's coming to America. Community centers like this one in Wales turned into local vaccination hubs. A light at the end of the tunnel and a hope that seeing the first wave of injections will boost public confidence in the vaccine.
Well, I'd say go for it. Go for it because it's free and it's the best thing that's ever happened.
Now, there are some logistical challenges with this Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. It has to be stored at -70 degrees Celsius. It can only be moved 4 times, and once it is thawed, it can only be stored in a refrigerator for up to 5 days. Those are issues that experts here in the U.S. have also been working to address. Reporting live in the newsroom, Rana Novini, News 4 New York.
All right, Rana, still a lot to figure out. Thank you for that. The latest there. Now, as New Jersey reports more than 5,000 new cases of COVID-19. You see the long lines of cars that waited today outside of a COVID testing site. This was in Newark. That was the wait around 8:30 this morning at Branch Brook Park. The state also reporting 90 new COVID-19 related deaths. Now to Connecticut, where the positivity rate is now the highest it's ever been, sitting at 8.6%. That's a 2% jump just from yesterday. Hospitalizations also went up again, and there's been another 18 COVID-related deaths. Of course, mental health has been top of mind during this pandemic, especially as the holidays get closer. And today, you see Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont. He hosted a roundtable to remind folks of the various mental health and family services available in the state. It can all be found on the state's 211 website. Also hotlines for young adults there who might be struggling and parents struggling to put food on the table, Dave.
Natalie, some people saw flurries flying earlier today, and now Storm Team 4 says we have some snow showers on the way. Let's get a first check of the forecast with Dave Price. Dave?
Nice to see it. 36 degrees outside. There's a chill in the air, and there's been one all day. This, David, is what we're talking about. It's a quick mover, a round of snow that's going to roll in, bring scattered snow showers to the area, primarily to the north and west of the city. We could see some rain showers out and about the 5 boroughs. This is going to move in, move through, and move out real quickly as we head into tomorrow. How much do we wind up with? Again, I don't think anything measurable in the immediate metropolitan area. As we head to the north and west, that's where we could see a trace to a scattering, and then 1 to 3 as we head to sections in the higher elevations and up towards central New York and up towards the Capital District, a little more than that. Full forecast in a little while, including a warm-up. Back to you.
Catch you then, Dave. Thank you. In New York City, indoor dining could shut down in just 6 days. It depends on whether the city's hospitalization rate can stabilize and stabilize quickly. It does have many restaurants wondering if they'll be able to survive the winter. News 4's Gus Rosendale's on the Upper East Side with more of the concerns of restaurant owners. Gus?
Well, David, as you can imagine, these outdoor venues like the one I'm sitting in have been so key to make up for lost time and, of course, lost money. The big question now, can they help these restaurants get through the winter?
The family that owns the Isle of Capri at 61st and 3rd has welcomed guests for more than 60 years. This year, they've invested in a sturdy, heated outdoor eating area, and they hope it pays off.
And then we started to build, and we had to, get the planters. It was costly at the time, but we had no choice.
Restaurant owners with both elaborate and perhaps less elaborate outdoor eating areas are waiting for official word. But the governor and mayors say the end of indoor dining is likely as hospitalization rates continue to rise.
I do expect restrictions in a matter of days.
The tri-state area already losing thousands of restaurants and jobs.
Any new shutdown needs to be coupled with financial support. Even Dr. Fauci said that.
A bike lane, turn lane, and fire hydrants means Mimi's at 52nd and 2nd has only been able to set up a smaller outside venue. Adding to the challenge, New Jersey and other parts of New York may only see reductions of inside dining capacity, not a complete shutdown.
It doesn't make sense to me at all. Literally anybody with the means and in 20 minutes on their hand can go and have an indoor meal, while New Yorkers are stuck and restaurateurs are really put, under the gun.
Now, for those of you wondering, the mayor tells us that these outdoor spaces will be allowed to stand for years to come. And I suppose that's a little bit of good news for the restaurants that can make it to the spring. Live on the Upper East Side, I'm Gus Rosendale, News 4, New York.
All right, Gus, thank you. All right, in New Jersey, there is a lot of concern about threats to the COVID vaccine rollout. There's no specific threat, but the state's Homeland Security director says this goes beyond the cyber attack concerns that we first told you about last week. And he's only talking to News 4's Brian Thompson.
New Jersey's Homeland Security Director telling me it's all hands on deck to protect the vaccine doses expected to be sent to this state in the next week. For starters, while vaccinations are expected to be free, the vaccine is still a very valuable commodity that hundreds of millions of people around the world will be taking in coming months.
It's something we're concerned with and throwing the kitchen sink at, quite frankly, from a federal, state, and local level to ensure that the supply chain is secure.
Here at University Hospital in Newark, CEO Sharif El-Nahal is fully aware of that.
We are alerting all of our security forces and getting the city involved to make sure that it's secure as well. But very importantly, also being very discreet about exact details of delivery, timing, how it's going to happen, even taking images of our freezers, etc. All of that we're avoiding.
But just as concerning, Maple says, is the threat of protests, anti-vaccination demonstrations that have become increasingly vocal in recent years, and anti-government protests, such as armed demonstrators who went to the home of Michigan's Secretary of State this week, angry over losing that state's presidential contest. For hospitals such as University and some 5 others in line to get the first doses in New Jersey.
We'll deal with that as we have with every other incident and issue that's come up over the last 10 to 11 months. Which is, again, respectful of everyone's rights, but ensuring that if you want a vaccine, you should be able to have access and get to that vaccine.
There is also concern over social media disinformation about these vaccines, both from overseas and domestically. Again, the state is working with local and federal law enforcement on it, and in this case, with social media companies.
We've seen a lot of it. There's been a gigantic uptick over the last 10 months, and it is concerning because people make decisions based off of that.
Maples admits social media companies sometimes need a little persuasion to take some of their posts on misinformation down. He says that's a continuing challenge for officials. While those are still in circulation, he emphasizes that as far as thefts and protests are concerned, there are no specific threats at this time. In Newark, Brian Thompson, News 4 New York.
In Westchester County, dozens of nurses claim they're still locked out from the front lines after going on strike last week. Today, they demanded the hospital let them return to work, but right now does not appear to be a deal. All this as the county faces a dangerous coronavirus surge. We've got a reporter in New Rochelle talking to both sides, and we're going to check with them coming up on News 4 at 5.
Well, President Trump and President-elect Joe Biden held separate health care events at the same time today to highlight different approaches when it comes to COVID-19. Now, at an event to introduce nominees for his health team, President-elect Biden said today that he would aim to get 100 million COVID vaccine doses injected into Americans in his first 100 days in office. Now, at the same time, President Trump hosted a vaccine summit celebrating the expected approval later this week of the first COVID vaccine for U.S. distribution.
This will be one of the hardest, the most costly operational challenges in our nation's history.
Nobody thought it was even remotely possible to do what we've done in a period of less than 9 months.
President Trump also signed an executive order that's aimed at prioritizing COVID vaccines for Americans before other countries.